Welcome, everyone, once again to We Are Not Alone Healing in Color, brought to you by Black Mental Matters, the podcast where we explore culture, community, and the many paths to heal. I'm your host, Vince the Voice, and today, I'm in the ring, literally and figuratively, with one of boxing's trailblazers. My guest is none other than Terri T, the Boss, a retired world champion boxer, promoter, gym owner, and a 2015 inductee into the International Women's Boxing Hall of Fame. She began her boxing at the age of 34 after a career in law enforcement and still rose to the very top of the sport. Today, she's using her passion for boxing to empower others, especially women, and works closely with Atlanta's Mexican community to promote the sport's deep cultural impact. In this conversation, we'll be talking about resilience, healing, and the power of boxing as therapy. So ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, without further ado, let me present to you Terri T, the Boss. How you doing, boss?
Hi, Vince. How are you? That's quite an intro.
It feels good to tell it because it is all true. It is all true. How are you? Listen, me and Terri, I'll let everybody know we go way back. Corporate Fight Night. I believe I reached out to you and you had an announcer and he decided to get into the ring and you brought me in, and you know how it is. Once you go Vince, it don't make no sense. I've been announcing for you ever since then.
That's right. That's right. Yep. It's been, you're our favorite and our fan favorite. Everybody says, where's the guy? If something happens and you're booked and have to get somebody else, everybody's like, where's Vince? Where's Vince? Yeah, you're the man. He
We
does
have a
the
lot of
show.
we have a lot of fun together because we're trying to make sure everybody has a good time. And so let's get into the boss. You didn't step into the ring until your mid-30s and still became a world champion. I know there were those that doubted you and was like, what is she doing? I mean, what was it that kept you going during that time to go all the way to be a champion?
Well, what kept me going was just stubbornness, I think, but very, very stubborn. I got a story about that too, actually, Vince. But what got me into it was just kind of a stumble in. I'd always watched wrestling when I was a little girl, and I loved that stuff. And then, I watched Christy Martin in the ring with Mike Tyson at one point. A few years later, next thing you knew, I was in the boxing ring, training. I trained for a couple years before I boxed. But back then, there was barely any amateur boxing for women. There were no women in the Olympics or, even on the professional boxing cards, you had more likely to find a boxing match there than in an amateur event. Now, they just started some amateur stuff for women at that point. So, the weight classes are very, my weight class, which was, even I fought, 5 or 6 different weight classes in the beginning because all the females did. But my real weight class was 102 pounds. There just weren't a lot of people out there. So, the little bitties and the big ones, they have the hardest time. But yeah, I mean, it was not, like I had a big cheerleading squad behind me or anything like that. So took many years. In fact, my daughter, she didn't understand until she went to our first world title fight, and it was in Madrid. And she told me, she said, Mama, I understand why you're doing this now. But it took, a minute, 8 fights in to get to that point.
Wow.
So, it took a little bit. But, now nobody questions it. It's been 25.
That's right. That's right. You traded champions now. But before boxing, boss, you worked as a narcotics investigator in law enforcement. So how did that background prepare you for the discipline and toughness required in the ring?
Well, I used to tell people I went from arresting them to training them. So the same guys. But I mean, it's been, it's been good to have that background. I guess it made me tough enough to not be afraid in situations. But I mean, I did quite a few other jobs in law enforcement. Most people that are in law enforcement, maybe they work in a municipal, one year, and then a couple of years later, they might be in narcotics. A couple of years later, they might be in, school resource, or, they might run for sheriff. You just never know. So I was definitely a career officer, and I'd been in several different positions, but that's the one that I enjoyed the most, that I performed the best at, and that's the position that I was in, when I got into boxing.
We've talked a lot about boxing, boss, and you've said, boxing can be deeply therapeutic. What is it about boxing that helps people heal mentally and emotionally, you think?
Well, I've said it before, to a lot of people. They say boxing mano y mano. Of course, we're girls or whatever, or guys, but they say that because the truth is, it's almost like when you're born and you get in that ring, you have nothing. Doesn't matter how much money you have, doesn't matter who's your daddy,
Mhm.
doesn't matter, if you just got out of jail, it doesn't matter if you're, 14 or 26, or 86, it doesn't matter. Everybody in the ring is just their real self, and it gives them a chance to show what they're made of, or to learn what they're made of, or maybe even to grow what they're made of. People come for a variety of reasons, but it's all, boxing all is mental, because there's no other reason that makes sense to do that thing, to stand up in a boxing ring, just you and one person in front of people, to see who's going to get their butt kicked. I mean, it sounds kind of rough, but the truth is, there's great honor and integrity in that particular sport, which is why you'll see a lot of fighters hug each other after the fight, because they're like, we did this thing together. So it's, most great fighters and the people that they had the hardest fights with, they have the most respect for at the end of the day. So it's a place for growth and discovery, of who you are, and what you're made of. And then you can humbly take that out of the ring, because, once then you're made of, maybe you'll be a little more considerate of what other people are made of as well.
You Buckhead Fight Club, that's your spot. We don't talk about Fight Club, but we're gonna talk about
Right.
it now. It's a beautiful thing, and I've shared with you, especially with the young ones, the USA Boxing young fighters, that I could just feel it in the air. The discipline, the respect. You'll have ex cops, ex fire people, ex military, ex cons, who all come together in that space and work with young people. And it's just some magic that takes place. That's the part about it that I really love.
Yeah. I mean, it really, like I said, it doesn't matter who you are. Doesn't matter. And you see, I mean, we see less, I see less law enforcement than I ever would have thought I would. You would think they'd be the first guys in there, but I guess there's a lot to go in there and face your the person, your adversary, somebody that you actually maybe had an interaction with. You have a lot to think, maybe someone wants to do something. I don't know that. Like I said, when I first got into the ring, I think one thing that I really loved was the freedom that I had to explore people not like me, you know, whether it's a different race, or a different, even some often a different size. That was the hard part. But also different cultures, different backgrounds, different emotional, purpose and that kind of thing. I really was intrigued, I think more than anything, by that, by the history, like, who is this guy? And, Vince, I remember early on, before I was fighting, I used to work a lot of corners, because my first coach, he said, "You're too old to fight. You'll never be a fighter." Plus, I had hepatitis C, which I only found out when I donated blood one time. And, way back then, they really didn't know a lot about it. I went to my doctor. He's like, "If you get sick, we'll see what to do." But, there's just so many different types of that now. This was, in the 90s, so they didn't really know a lot about it. Um, but so I had that all these reasons. So I was like, well, can I get cured? I mean, I never even, like, it didn't dawn on me that if I want to do this thing, I couldn't do it. That's maybe something I learned from law enforcement, is like, no matter how crazy it sounds for you to do that thing, whatever it might be. I have a little quote right here on my wall. This is my office fence at my house. It's from Customato, and it says, "What you do in the end is what you were always going to do all along." And so, I mean, that's a true thing. So if you decide you're going to do something, you're going to do it. If you fear that you might do something, you're still going to do it, because it's interesting how the mind works. But that knowledge, and a lot of that I saw from being in law enforcement, and I was an investigator, so I did a lot of training on human verbiage and body language. And you know I never listen to what a person says. I always listen to not the words, but the reality and the totality of the conversation. And I put everything into effect: background, who they are, how I know them, how they know me. What it's just, it's made it such a different language to me to converse with people. But I was able to kind of, use that in my own boxing career, to the people that didn't believe, I didn't let that bother me. I just got around it, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
I said, "I understand why you feel that way or why you think." So,
Mhm.
yeah, a lot of adversity about, trying to do this, and even still, I mean, 25 years in, Vince, you know they make jokes. A lot of people don't like that, they don't like me. That's
No.
between us.
Uh,
That's okay because they just don't understand where the drive comes from, but the drive comes from, you can do what you want.
That's right. That's right. And you're doing what you want. I mean, gym owner, promoter, manager, and a trainer. I mean, you train so many boxers and being a woman in this sport. Women in particular, because you had the boxing chicks, you did a movie. I mean, there's been a lot of focus on, you and the ladies, and I got to know a lot of them as well. What transformation do you see that happens in women when they take up boxing?
I miss those days, Vince. Honestly, there's so many less women in the sport now. Even though they get more and more now and they're more recognition than they've ever had, I can just say that I see less. And I go to the tournaments, I go to the fights, I go to the amateur events. I don't see as many females coming in, which is a shame to me. One thing I used to love about women's boxing when it was separate from the male boxing is they had their own platform. We would go to the women's national golden gloves every year and there would be 250, 300 boxers there, little girls, big older women. And, once they mingled it in with the guys, I think it just got to where it just didn't look as fun. It just not doesn't look like the club it used to look like. But, I mean, it does so much for women in the fact that they can challenge themselves into being outside of the lines. I feel strong in there. I feel fast. Even now I'm 60, Vince. I'm old. Well, I
Too.
feel it.
Yeah.
I mean, but I still can get in there and, move around, and I don't box anymore, of course, but, I mean, I have to be careful because things break now, so you
Mhm.
can't just do whatever you want. Mm, you know, it's been so empowering to me to feel like I have an authority in my own world that I can decide to be good to other people and decide what I need to do to help that person along and that they'll value my opinion. So that's kind of what, women can, just by getting in there, there's a level of respect that they can get. Um, they just want to be counted. They just want to be counted. Boxing might be the ultimate of strength.
True.
Finding a way to
Yeah.
get yourself counted, you know, it works. It kind of depends on your drive. For me, I love the ring, so and being a trainer is my most treasured part of what I do. I love that more than anything other that and then the shows. Those are the 2 things I like the most. But yeah, I mean, it's so good for your own self-value and worth, and then to explore a way to conquer your fears.
When you talk about shows, I just immediately my mind went to the corporate fight nights, and so just to explain to everyone, it becomes the black tie, black eye affair like no other. You may have a doctor fighting a lawyer, a secretary fighting a nurse, a plumber fighting a roofer, and it's all raising funds for nonprofits. But these are everyday people who decide to go through the regimen and they get sanctioned by USA Boxing and
Right,
get in the ring. And
right.
I always think back again. I tell you, when working with one of your boxers, interviewing her, and I could just tell she was ready to get her frustration out, whatever was going on in her life. I felt so bad for her opponent because her opponent was this really rich, yes, I'm
Yeah,
having a crazy buddy, and it happened just like I thought. But that is just such a way that you interact with everyday people, and I mean, do they feel accomplished when that's over? Heck yeah! I mean, it is such
right.
such a great event, corporate fight.
Right, 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 right. I miss that event. We don't do it so much now because USA Boxing has basically gone from a nonprofit to raising up Olympic champions, and they're really like a promotional company now. So they do so many promotions that it kind of stole that away from us. I do like boxing show consulting and things like that, and then I promote shows for hire. So basically, if anyone wants to do a boxing show for a fundraiser, it's great. Now I work with the NAOP, which is it's a group that puts like construction
The real
owners,
estate.
yeah,
Yeah.
builders to real estate people to, so, but I do a show for them, like an annual show. But other than that, just for my own shows, it, got a little tougher. So they are good for people that they do like annual fundraisers and they kind of think it's real good to put a boxing show on. People love that better than any other thing, than anything you can do as a corporate fundraiser. They love those shows. And, you can let those guys participate. Mhm.
Coworkers, all their coworkers come in and cheer them on with that NAOP show. That last one was a doozy, boy. I'm telling you, you
Yeah.
had the
Yeah.
movers and shakers.
It was like the revival of corporate fight night. It's been that long since we've done like one like that, but they are so fun. They are so
Yes. Yes. Well,
yeah.
boxing, you're in Brookhaven, a corporate fight, Brookhaven Fight Club, and large Mexican, Hispanic community there. And boxing, has its strong roots. You've built some close ties through the gym and events with the Mexican community. Why do you think the sport resonates so powerfully in that culture?
Well, when I first, I've had my gym for like 13 years now. In the beginning, there were mostly Mexican clientele in that neighborhood because I'm in a neighborhood, other than, the financial district, Buckhead, which we used to be considered East Buckhead before Brookhaven Incorporated. But, there you got the business people and the money guys that come in and just want to do a workout, maybe do a little sparring. So we kind of just had that. But in the past 6 or 7 years, we've seen quite a jump in all kinds of immigrants of all like places. We've got Ukrainians, we've got Russians, we've got, Guatemalans, Venezuelans, Hondurans. Then when we bring in our Georgia Tech students, we've got it's almost all like 95% international students are the ones from Georgia Tech that come in.
Yeah.
Engineers,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah, we call them engineers. So, which most of them are. So we get a few business guys in there and stuff like that, mathematicians and stuff. But yeah, Georgia Tech is a smart kid school. We always said we want to make a shirt that says brains and balls. Who would have known? And they're like, yeah, we want that shirt. But no, I mean, boxing gyms in the old day they were kind of like churches. They were very segregated. You got the white guy gyms over here, maybe some Irish and, whatever, especially if you go to New England. And I just got back yesterday from New York City where, I realized, it's like still going back in time. There's Irish, Jewish, and you have the Italian main populations that can be, that normally wouldn't live together, but they do in boxing. So it's just such a great diversity. But anyway, bringing all those types of people together to just to man up or woman up with each other in a boxing ring and have nothing but respect. I mean that that at first, like I said, you were asking about the Mexican community connecting. I was scared about it. I was like, oh, not just am I a white lady, but I'm a lady. So I just didn't know how that would go. But I mean, I've just had nothing but love from the whole community. And it's been like the greatest experience in my life. Like the cultural diversity that I'm exposed to every day as like a gem. I feel so fortunate. Most people don't ever live that life. So I'm buried in a pool of mixed colors and languages. And, I love that.
I love it too. That's why, working with you has been such a blessing because you're great, but then the people that
Oh,
surrounds you,
yeah.
that you work with, get an opportunity to interact with them and that
Right.
whole culture thing. I mean, that's what this is all about, and that we can all heal together, and find purpose and direction. Boxing, it does that. Would you say help young people,
Right.
especially, find purpose and direction?
Absolutely. We had a kid from Georgia Tech that came through like the end of the night a couple of weeks ago, maybe a couple of months ago. And he just happened to pop in, but I remembered him right away, his face from Georgia Tech. But honestly, Vince, I've trained so many people at this point. I can't remember names. I'm so bad about it, but I knew him right away. And I remembered the fight that he had with us at the gym. And he came by and he's 27 years old now. And I'm like, gosh, I thought you just graduated. But he said he's married, they're having children, he's in the military, he's a captain. And he just wanted to come by and, thank us for getting him into boxing. He said he's still doing it. Of course, he's got to have a living to provide. He's not doing it professionally, but he said that was just the best part of his college experience was being in the boxing club. So, I mean, just those kind of things make it so rewarding. Like, you just don't know what your words mean to us when, boxing can be a thankless business for a lot of people. And, in my field, and especially when you go to pro boxing, people complain about how bad boxing is for 'em. You're like, it's like a bad girlfriend, she's bad for you and you shouldn't go back, but you just keep going back. I'm like, yeah, it's hard to leave, that's for sure. So, but to me, it's been more, it's been like a sibling, somebody you love, and sometimes it's good and sometimes it's bad, and you just got to manage your relationship and be forgiving about
Hmm.
be forgiving about boxing. It's just boxing. I know what I signed up for, but it has, it's a place of mental development on the grandest level. I had a girl one time that did a corporate fight night, and, she was interviewed in the Boxing Chicks film, and she said, "Boxing taught me how to lose." And she was so humble and sad about it. And I had another one, that was, weird. We had, like, a brain surgeon, a neurosurgeon versus a PhD psychologist. They boxed each other, and it was a great fight, but the surgeon she lost the fight, and she's 2 years later, I went to see her to give for a medical for a fighter, and she said, "That hurt me for a long time. It really hurt me for a long time. I just couldn't get over it. It just made it defeated my whole image of myself." And I told her I hate that. That's one of the other sides of this experience. But that's why some people say boxing is, like a bad girlfriend or whatever. But the thing is if that's what you went through, that had to be part of your stage in life that you needed for growth because she got past it. And now what does it mean? Sometimes we have to be humbled a little bit, or maybe we need to see there's a more human side of us, especially people that succeed and succeed and succeed. And they just know no loss. I mean, not that you want to go in there and lose a boxing match, but really at the end of the day, it's just a boxing match. Nobody cares and nobody will remember. You know what I'm saying? I mean, just you. So that's your experience. But, and I told her that I said, sometimes that's just part of our something we really need to explore a higher level of who we are. Wow, I did that thing,
Yeah, you did.
and it even takes some coaching to get people to understand that part. And every day you deal with losses and wins. At the end of the day, I tell my own fighters, I'm like, do you know how many times I had to get my butt off that canvas? Not literally, go home with a loss with my tail between my legs because I'm a trainer and everybody expects me to win. And I train all these, people, all the boxing chicks, and I would go to a world title fight and I would lose my confidence. I had issues with that because I got in so late and that kind of thing. And then I have to, suck it up and go back and, back to the drawing board and chin up, kind of thing. I mean, it took so much power not to just run away and hide, but it did so much for me being able to deal with any kind of problem. And some people think I'm confrontational, but it's not that. I just realize it's always better to face the music right now. Don't let things drag out until everybody's uncomfortable for a long time. It taught me how to deal with problems immediately. Like I'll ask somebody right out of the blue, "Are you feeling something? Do we need to talk? Or is there something wrong? Or, what's going on?" And they want to run from it and run from it. I'm like, "Let's talk." So boxing definitely taught me that. I'm so glad that I had to get up off that canvas, not really, but but literally come with my tail between my legs and visit the defeat and visit the humiliation, and then to be able to face that and say, let's go again. Come on, right now.
Boss,
So,
oh, just wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. We got a
yeah.
little bit of time left. You've been a fighter, boss, trainer, promoter, Hall of Famer. Hey, that's right. This movie is, I hate to date things, but this movie about Christy Martin's life is getting ready to come out.
Can't
What,
wait to
what,
see that.
yeah, what's exciting you now? Or are you excited about the future of women's boxing? I know you say it changed. It used to be different. Are you
Mhm.
excited about the future?
Definitely excited. I mean, for once, even though it's still far, far from equal, but I mean, the guy that's making things change right now is Jake Paul. But one thing, because he's invested in women's boxing, he's paying them equal pay to men, what they should be paid. I mean, but how long is he going to make it? And is somebody going to pick those pieces up when he's done? I don't know. I mean, one thing about boxing, like I said, it's a roller coaster. It's good. It's bad. It's great. It's horrible. It is. But you just gotta, if you know what you signed up for, you can ride the wave and say, at the end of the day, you know, did I have a good life from it? Whether it was about money or just experience, did I see the world? Did I meet new people? Was I able to change a life? I mean, that to me is the important part. But I do see, I mean, right now, women's boxing is on a high as far as their notoriety. The participation, I'm not going to say that that's gotten bigger. I mean, what we really need are just more women fighters. But, Vince, I have seen like in Korea, in South Korea, when I used to go there to work with the WBF and the WIBF, I was a supervisor for championship fights. Women's boxing was all the boxing. They had,
Mm,
lower level, like the guys were just the intros. It was the weirdest.
wow.
In fact, they cared not one bit about men's boxing, but it had something to do with some cultural things there too. But it's not that women's boxing should take over men's, but it would just be nice to see it equal, and it's getting there. But is there, to a certain extent, yes. But we just have to see what happens. So, but I do think all women's sports are on the rise. All women's sports.
They are. They
Yeah.
are. Some new. I know, just like the men, and just about any sports, a lot of times you need the antagonist, the protagonist. The good
Right.
guy, the bad guy. And that's the hype. That's what the Ali's did back in the day against the Foremans, against the Fraziers. Now today you got Clarissa Shield, and I met her at your gym when she was boxing as an amateur, and look at her now. She's on top of the world.
Turning into the antagonist.
She's
Yeah.
turned it into
She's trying to do that game. Yeah.
heel,
So it's working.
the
It's
heel, like
working.
in wrestling, she's the heel, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
working for her. And I believe she's here in Atlanta now. So who
Yeah.
knows? You'll probably get to see her there at Buckhead Fight Club. What a great times we have there. And
Yeah.
boss, this much time that we have left, if you had to sum up the greatest life lesson boxing has taught you, what would it be?
It's about the journey. It's not the end. So, when Deion Sanders he said, I've got a Super Bowl ring and I've won the World Series. But now what? I mean, I'm looking at my trophies right here on my wall. I've got all my championship belts and portraits of me that people made and things. It's in my office. I mean, yeah, you could be great in sports and have, the cameras on you, but at the end of the day, you go home, you have your family, it comes to an end, and it's really about the journey. I mean, even the bad things, you can use to tell your story. Some people would be completely unknown without the story to tell. And it's all about, just telling the story. And it's about the journey of your experience. At the end of the day, can you learn from it? Can you live with it? And can you redeem whatever's left to be redeemed? That's the real story right there.
Boss, T Moss the boss, Terri Moss, I
Yeah.
want to thank you so much for sharing your incredible story with us, from the law enforcement world to stepping into the ring at 34 to becoming a world champion and a Hall of Famer. Your journey, boss, proves that it's never too late to fight for yourself and for others.
That's right.
That's right. What stands out now is how you've transformed boxing from just a sport into a tool for healing for women, for the community, and for anyone willing to lace up the gloves and face life head on. Encourage everybody, you can find it at buckheadfightclub.com and learn about the gym. Set yourself up for some boxing lessons. You got all kinds of activities going on out there. And I encourage you, look her up, Terri T. Moss the boss. That is my boss, and I love her.
You, Vince, you too.
Thank you. Well, listen, listeners, healing doesn't always come from the quiet places. Sometimes it comes from movement, sweat, and the fight within us. I'm Vince the Voice. This has been Healing in Color. Be sure to subscribe, share, and visit Black Mental Matters for more episodes. Until next time, stay strong, stay healing, and stay in color. We'll see you. Thank you so much.